You talk about liking winning records in the Big East. How about a team like Cincinnati? They're 6-6 in the Big East, 15-9 overall. Do you have them in?
I have them in. At 500 in the Big East, that still impresses me, especially when you're a team like Cincinnati, kind of off, the national radar, but they're making their way up, and I would put them in right now.
Mike?
Yeah, they've got 2 wins against Connecticut, and then Connecticut just went out and beat Villanova. So I think with Cincinnati, you got to say they're in. It's going to be a tough battle. I think we're going to see a lot of these teams. How they play in the Big East tournament is really going to define whether or not they get to the tournament.
And I think Cincinnati's in. And, a lot of times over Thanksgiving we're eating turkey, but I'm watching basketball. And over Thanksgiving, they beat Maryland and they beat Vanderbilt. And those 2 teams are, at least as far as we're concerned, they're in the tournament. Also, some other Big East bubble teams they've beaten. They beat Notre Dame, they've swept UConn, and they beat USF. So I think you take a look at that body of work along with the quality RPI and a really good strength of schedule. I think Cincinnati's in. But, of course, that's a big game Sunday. They play Marquette. We mentioned that earlier. If they beat Marquette, I think they're for sure in. If they lose, then they're 6-7, so that's pretty tough. Notre Dame now, and this is another interesting team. They went to the tournament last year, 17-9. They're 6-7, but they've had some bad losses in the Big East, Mike.
I think they're out 78 RPI, like you said. Losses to Loyola Marymount, Northwestern, who's another team on the bubble, St. John's, Seton Hall. I mean, they've got some very questionable losses, and at this point, I don't think they have the body of work to get in.
And you can add Rutgers to that list too, Jordan.
17-9, but 6-7 in the Big East. There's that losing conference record. 1-3 versus top 25 teams in the AP. No way does Notre Dame get in.
I like the West Virginia win, but of course, just too many bad losses. I'm always one of those people, if I'm on the fence, I think a big win is better than a bad loss, but too many bad losses. But look what they got up ahead. They got Louisville, they got Pitt, and they got Georgetown. And of course, they got the Big East tournament. They can make a statement, but right now, they got some work to do. And UConn, I had them out as of right now, but then they had a nice win tonight versus Villanova on the road. So at 15-11, 5-8, Jordan, is UConn in?
No. And it doesn't feel right saying that UConn should not make the NCAA tournament. But 5-8 in the Big East, 15-11, you can't give them the excuse that Jim Calhoun was out for a part of the season. That should not give you a break trying to get into the NCAA tournament. Great win tonight against Villanova. Congrats to UConn. They're going to have to probably do something close to win out to get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, UConn's got a win against Texas. They've got a win now against Villanova, but I still think they're out. They lost to Cincinnati twice, who's another team on the bubble and has a better conference record. And then they lost on the road at Michigan, a team who's most likely not going to be getting into the NCAA tournament either. So I don't think they have the body of work to get in either.
And they lost to Providence, too. So we're all in the greens. They're out. They did some nice work for them beating Villanova, but you got to do a little more than that. I think the most intriguing conference in college basketball is the Atlantic 10, because right now Joe Lunardi says there are 6 teams from this conference that are in right now. And then you even got a team like St. Louis. He didn't have them in, but they're right on the outside looking in. He says Temple's a lock. I think Temple's a lock, so I won't even put them on this bubble list. But let's go down this A10 list. So we'll start with Richmond. Mike, 20-6, 9-2 in conference. Do you like Richmond?
I think Richmond's in. They're on the top of the conference right now. I think the A10, there's a lot of teams right there even that would get in tomorrow possibly, but by the end of the season, regular season, we're going to see some of these teams tail off. But right now I think Richmond's in.
Jordan, with 4 wins versus the RPI top 50, do you think they're in?
Yes, absolutely. If the season ends today, Richmond is in the tournament.
Also, they beat Florida and Mississippi State, which I think are also 2 SEC bubble teams, so I think that helps you too. But they do got a tough stretch to end the season. They got to play at Xavier, they got to play Dayton, and they got to play at Charlotte. So those are all fellow bubble teams. They got to win some of those games. But as of right now, with a good strength of schedule and a solid RPI at 27, I think they're in. Let's go to Charlotte now. We're usually not talking about Charlotte this time of year, but at 18-6, 8-2. You got Charlotte, Jordan.
Yeah, put the Niners in the tournament. Why not? You look at their record, 18-6. They're 8-2 in that conference, and they're 2-2 versus the top 25. Sitting at second place right now in the Atlantic 10. I'm gonna put them in the tournament. I'll be nice today.
Yeah, I think Charlotte's out. They beat Louisville, which was a great win. They have a 33-point loss to Old Dominion. They lost to Dayton. They lost to Tennessee. They lost to Georgia Tech. You can tell when when they're facing these better opponents, they're not even competing. So I don't think Charlotte's going to have the body work in the end to get in, and I have them out.
They did get blown out, by Dayton.
They did. But
just
as of right
destroyed.
now, I think they're in. They're barely in with an RPI of 41. But here's the thing. They've won 7 out of the last 8 games. But I think this is a team at the end of the day, they're out. Right now they're in, but they got to play Richmond, they got to play Xavier, and they got to play URI. So this team might have the most to win, but they also got the most to lose. At the end of the day, I think they lose at least 2 or 3 of those games. So I think at the end of the day they're out. As of right now, I think they're in. Xavier coming off a big win against Florida, which is a fellow bubble team. They're 17-7, 8-2 though in the conference. Do you guys think they're in?
Yeah, I do. And you mentioned Florida. That's 2 bad bubble losses for Florida, 2 Atlantic 10 teams. We'll get to them later. But Xavier is absolutely in the tournament right now. As they sit, they're 17-7 overall. Again, 8-2 in the conference, even though I believe they sit at 4th place in the Atlantic 10. I think they're in, and they are a great tournament team if you get them in.
Mike.
Xavier's another one of these teams that plays a very tremendous schedule throughout the entire season. Their RPI is at 20, like you guys said. I think they're in. That win against Florida on the road was huge, and I think they're going to get in.
Yeah, they've beaten Rhode Island, Dayton, Charlotte. They beat Cincinnati, which is another bubble team. And then, like we've talked about, they beat Florida. They get Charlotte, and they got Richmond coming up again. So I think they're in right now. I think they could lose one of those 2 games, maybe both of them, and still be in, just because the strength of schedule is so good and the RPI is so good. And a little bit of history in the tournament doesn't hurt you either. They've been there before. They've done it. I think they're in. St. Louis, and I threw them on there because they're sitting at 7-3. They're coming off a big win over Dayton. They're 16-9. They got a low RPI, so I say they're out. But Mike, do you like St. Louis and Rick Majerus?
I agree with you. They're out. I don't think they're going to get in unless they really run the table to end the season and then make a run in their conference tournament. I just don't see them getting in.
Jordan.
Yeah, this I kind of look at it as when you're trying to get your mom to let you invite all of your friends to a birthday party when you're little. You can't let everyone come. You can't let friends of your friends come. This case, St. Louis, nice win over Dayton, but everyone can get up for a big game throughout the duration of the season. I just don't think St. Louis has enough to be in the tournament.
And let's talk about Dayton now. 17-7, 6-4 in the A10. I don't like the fact that they're 6-4 in the A10. But with an RPI of 32 and a strength of schedule of 32 and 4 wins versus RPI top 50 teams, including Georgia Tech, I like Dayton in the tournament. Jordan, do you got him in?
Another team with a little bit of tournament history, they can get in. I don't have them in only because 6-4 in their conference, even though it is an interesting, tough conference this year. But that's my tournament. I think that they would get selected for the tournament, just not mine.
Mike.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jordan, on that. I don't think that they should get in based on what they have so far. They're a good team, and like I said, these last couple weeks in this conference is going to be huge. There's going to be teams that can make statements, and there's going to be teams we have on this board right now who won't even be in the conversation in 2 weeks. But right now, I don't think Dayton's in.
See, and I think they're in, like I said, but like we were alluding to, Mike, they play at Temple, at Richmond, and St. Louis. So those are big games. If they lose a couple of those road games, that could be really detrimental to them, especially they lost to St. Joe's in the A10. That's a bad loss. They lost to St. Louis, a team they probably should have beaten. They're playing well, but I like the Old Dominion win, though, actually, because Old Dominion's another team that's in a different conference, though, but they're a quality team, maybe on the bubble. So I like that win, too. So barely put them in, but I got them in. URI, or University of Rhode Island, they're 19-5, 7-4 in conference. Mike, do you got them in?
They won at Dayton, they won at Boston College, and they won at Arkansas. They've got a good body of work, and their schedule sets up favorably down the stretch. They're probably going to win at least 5 of their last 6 games. I think Rhode Island's in.
Jordan.
As of right now, no. But if they become a 20-win team, they're sitting at 19-5 right now, then I think you seriously have to consider them.